Hi everyone. Okay, so today's lesson is going to be a little bit different. Usually I have, the big lesson plan all prepped out and everything's ready to go. But this time is more of like a wing it lesson. I usually do this once a semester, mostly because then you have to kind of go through the thought process of building out whatever it is that we're building out, and you can see how I managed to figure out that information, which is a skill that I feel a lot of students don't have, is really just the ability to Google properly. So I don't know how much Googling we'll need to do, mostly because what we're going to be learning today I already kind of know. We're going to be taking a look at error handling and file management. That's the idea that we're working with today. Error handling in PHP, super simple, but we're also going to take a look at logging so that we can see that, because generally you don't want to have the errors go out to the user. You want to suppress those, give them a nice friendly error message that's human readable for them, but you still want to take the errors that were caught and store them somewhere so you can go see what's wrong and then troubleshoot that. And I will admit that this is probably a lesson that we should have did a little earlier in the semester. It would have definitely helped troubleshoot your projects a little better. But you know what? Hindsight's 2020. So we're going to make up for it today. This is one of the few ones that I'm not going to. I will publish like a weekly folder. If you look right now, no, there's no weekly folder online yet. I do apologize for that, but I will put it up once I have the video published. So I don't even know why I'm bringing it up, because you aren't even going to notice the difference, because you're not going to see this till the video is published. But anyways, yeah, so there'll be a weekly lesson here for week 10. There's not going to be an SCM education lesson for it. I believe there's a folder link for it. Just no point in filling it out. A lot's going on right now, especially with COVID-19 and everything else, and working from home, because there's just so much work happening right now. Don't really have time to write out a whole massive textbook insert. I will at some point, just probably not before the test. So definitely you may want to take notes during this. What we learned today will be on the test as well. And yeah, that's basically what's going to happen. I'm also going to talk a little bit about the final, but I will be putting out a video about this and some information about when the final is going to be, how you're going to take the final, and what the expectations are for the final. But yeah, and there will be definitely a final, and it will be marked, it will be practical. You will be expected to take the final at the specific time allotted, which will be your class time. So if your class is on Monday at 5, then you will be expected to take your final at 5, and it will close out at well, I'll probably close it out at 10, so I'll give you like 5 full hours for it. But you will be able to work with other people. Obviously, you need to practice social distancing, so if you want to do that over Discord or whatever, communicate with each other, that's fine. Just like the last final, everybody's tests will be different. So obviously, support will really be based on how you ask questions, I guess. What else about the final? Yeah, that's basically it. So any of you that have not been following the lessons, which you probably won't even hear this one then, if that's the case, I feel for you, because you're definitely going to struggle with the final if you haven't been keeping up with the lessons, or you might miss the final altogether because you haven't been keeping up with the lessons. All right, so let's get into this. So I'm going to just close this out for now. There we go. I mean, we're going to wing it, so let's just open up WAMP. Get our WAMP server going. There we go. We got the little green WAMP server, right? Remember, if you click on the WAMP server and go to your www directory, it will take you to the www directory. Mine is not on C, it's actually on D, but yours will be on C drive. So I'm just going to go to mine. There we go. So yours will look basically the same. Just ignore this part. We'll go into COMP-6, and then we will create a new folder, and we'll call it Lesson 10. There we go. We'll right-click on this and choose to open with code, and that will open up our editor. Now, hopefully you're okay with this ultra-wide setup. I kind of like it because I've got more real estate for code and more real estate for actually showing you the demonstration. Hopefully the text size on this side is okay because I know probably most of you don't have an ultra-wide monitor. So hopefully the display isn't too reduced. I'm going to increase the font size so it should make up for it anyways. Shouldn't be a big deal. In this lesson 10 folder, I'm going to create a new folder called examples, and we'll put all of our examples under there. I'm also going to create a new folder in there too called upload. So there we go. And this is where our uploads will go, and that needs to be under the example folder. If it created it outside, just drag it into it, and then it should be good to go, and everything should be fine. All right, so I think we'll start with error handling. I was going to start with uploads, but I think we'll start with error handling because we can use the error handling logic inside our upload example and kind of go through that. This lesson might actually go fairly quick, just to give you a heads up. Let's create an index page just so we have one. There we go, and we'll add some code to it, just HTML. If you have Visual Studio Code, you can just hit the exclamation mark and hit tab, and that will auto-create an HTML page for you. I'm just going to cut out all the excess stuff for now and format it a little nicer. And I'll call this error handling. There we go. All right, and then we can go to our WAMP server, go to localhost, and navigate to our COMP-1006 directory. Go to lesson 10, and we should be good, except for that should be in the examples folder. So let's put that in the examples folder. And then we'll go to examples. There we go. All right, should say error handling up here if you're on the correct page, right? We can even put a header in here. With an H1 that says error handling. There we go. So one of the issues that some of you have seen up to this point is that when we have an error, it usually gets displayed to us in a nice orange box with some styling, and there's like an error message, right? And at this point, almost all of us knows how to troubleshoot those errors. We can understand where the error happens, we know what the error is, and we know how to read it. Some of us still have a little bit of difficulty with errors, but you should get in the habit of reading debugging messages. Every programming language will spit out a debugging message. So understanding how to read them and where to look for the error is really important. So we'll cover that first, just for those of you that are still struggling with that process. And then what we'll do is we'll take a look at how to take that error, suppress it so it doesn't actually output to the display, and then instead add that to our logging. So PHP has a built-in logging function inside of it that will actually take our error messages and automatically output it to our system logs. But obviously you need to be able to find those in order to read them, so you know where where the error logging is going and stuff like that. But we'll take a look at that in a second. So our first step right now is to read an error message. So let's take a look at one of the most common error messages I've seen that you guys have encountered, and that would be reference errors. So if I go echo $reference, so that's just a variable I just made up. And many of you probably already spotted the mistake right now, right? I'm echoing out reference, but I don't have it defined anywhere. We haven't assigned a value to it. So I'm echoing something that technically doesn't exist. This should result in a reference error. So I'm just going to bring this down. We'll do this, and then I'll give it a message here, or a comment. A result in a reference error. All right. So I'm trying to reference a variable that does not exist. So if I hit Control R over here, sure enough, I'll zoom in a bit so that you can see that. So notice undefined variable reference, right? So it's telling you the name, the symbol name that it can't find in, and then the location of the file that this error is happening in. So the location of the error is in my D drive WAMP64 www COMP-1006 lesson 10 examples index.php. So it tells you which file that the error is occurring in, and then it also tells you which line number that the error is occurring on. Now, often people get a bit confused about the line number in scenarios where the error isn't specifically on that line but might be above it. But you need to understand what the message is saying in those scenarios. And we'll look at one of those right in a few seconds here. But in order to fix this issue, the undefined variable reference, all we need to do is define the variable in order to get rid of it. So if I define the variable, like so, and then I refresh, the error goes away and I see my output is 5, right? Another common mistake that I find that a lot of students will do is not understand that this symbol name is literal, which means it has to be typed out the exact way that you've written it here. So you can't do reference with a capital R if you've defined the variable with a lowercase r, because the computer isn't going to take a look at the capital R and interpret what you mean. It's taking it literally. It looks at this as a literal byte reference and says, okay, well, this means it's pointing to this address location, and this means it's pointing to a different address location. They are not the same thing, right? So if I echo reference, I will get an error saying undefined variable reference. And I've had a number of students say, well, I defined this variable, it's there, but the reason was because they had capitalized it or misspelled it or whatever, and they had the assumption that the computer would fix their problem. But that's not how it works. So if I wanted to fix this issue, what I could do is I could even just assign it in line. And there we go, it's all fixed. But keep in mind that these are two different memory locations. They are not the same memory location. This value of reference is not 5 now, right? It's 10 for this one. This guy will be 5. Sorry, it's not 10 now. It'll be 5 still. And we can see that if we do a var dump of $reference and $reference. These are two different variables. They'll result in two different values, right? So 5 and 10. So that's an important thing to understand. Because it really isn't one of those, that it's basically programming 101, that variable naming or any symbol naming, right? So whether it's a function or a class name or anything like that, that case matters, spelling matters, stuff like that is super important, because the computer is not smart enough to interpret what you're trying to say. It's not going to infer that you meant a lowercase r when you didn't type a lowercase r, okay? So just keep that in mind. So our next one that we're going to take a look at is semicolon error. And this is where we wind up with this result where we have an error on a certain line, but that's not where the error actually is. It's not where the mistake is, right? So if I say my name is equal to Sean, for example, and then I try to echo my name is here, the error is going to happen on line 20. And actually what's interesting is this whole thing is alerting you right away, because it's saying on line 21 that there's a problem here, right? Unexpected echo. So if I refresh, we're going to see that error, parsing error, syntax error, unexpected echo on line 21. And what most students will do is immediately go to line 21 and say, well, it looks right to me. But the problem isn't here, the problem is above here, where this has not been closed, right? So in PHP, we have to terminate our statements with a semicolon. And if we forget to terminate the statement, what will happen is the parser will go to the end of this statement and immediately move to the next line, looking for the termination. But it's hitting in this echo function, and doesn't understand why it's hitting the echo function when it hasn't completed the statement above. So to fix this error, very simple, just add a semicolon, and it goes away, and we're fine. Now another issue that I've seen a lot of students do is this type of syntax where they've created the opening brace, but they forgot to close it. And then they immediately type in echo hi there. This is going to cause the same error that we had last time. Unless PHP is going to be completely stupid. It's erroring down here. I wonder if there's a way to get that to stop doing that. It's funny because it's actually ignoring it. Let's just type in an else, and then we'll see. There we go. All right, perfect. So unexpected else, T-else on line 25, and you'll look at the line 25 and be like, oh yeah, okay, so I made an error here. Obviously, it's because this isn't closed. But what I've seen a lot of students say is that they don't understand what the issue is. You have to remember that if you open a brace, you have to close the brace, right? So there's the close to the brace. Now I'll save it. I'll hit Control-R. And now we've got a different error. And this time it says unexpected end of file, which means it continued on through this code. It even passed this, didn't hit an error, but then it hit the end and it still hasn't seen the closing brace. So it's looking for that closing brace. It hasn't happened. A lot of you will look at the line 31 and say, well, that's correct HTML. I don't understand what's going on. And the reason is because it's hitting the end of file, but the error is actually based on this closing brace. I would say this is one of the harder errors to solve, mostly due that, you know, we're dealing with a file that's 31 lines. It's a lot more difficult when you start dealing with a file with hundreds of lines because it's harder to find where this error is actually occurring. So what you want to do, obviously to fix it, is add the closing brace, and then everything is nicely fixed. So you kind of have to just go and check and see where you have problems. And usually if you have that error, it's likely that you forgot to close the brace. So you can actually just go through your code, go find block statements like if conditions for each loops, while loops, do while loops, whatever, functions, whatever, and go see where you might not have a closing brace. Now, Visual Studio Code's pretty cool because it has the, what is it, brace highlight or bracket highlight built in, which means that when you click on the bracket, see how there's kind of like a little white square around the bracket? There's like a border around it. And if I click on this one, you'll see there's no border around this one, and it's trying to close out to this symbol down here, which obviously doesn't correlate to this one. And if I click on this one, you can see it correlates to that one. So this one doesn't have a brace, and that should be your immediate tell that you need to go close it off. Now when I close it off, it turns into this little square with a border, and I know it's actually being closed properly. That being said, though, you got to be careful because sometimes it will close off on a different brace, and you kind of have to work your way through to go find the one that's not closing out properly, right? So definitely want to deal with semicolon issues, missing brace issues, or missing brace / bracket issues, right? Because those result in errors as well. So that's important. So that's how we do error line reading, right? So definitely practice on fixing those. In the final, I'm going to give you a page that you're going to load, and it's going to have a whole bunch of errors, and you're going to have to resolve them, okay? Following just the parsing error, syntax error, whatever error it gives you, you need to read this and go solve the error to fix the page, all right? So one other thing we can do is catch our errors. When we get an error, we can catch it, because right now, these errors, when we get them, they're outputting to the screen, right? So the user sees the error, which we don't necessarily want. We also don't want warnings hitting the screen. We want to make sure those things are suppressed and that we're logging them out to a file instead. So I'm going to do that next. So let's suppressing. I think that's how you spell suppressing. Might not be. Let's check. See, it feels like it shouldn't be 2 S's, but I think it is. Yeah, it's 2 S's. All right, suppressing errors. All right, let's just do an echo $name. Yeah, I haven't created one. No. Okay, so we'll get our error message here. Notice undefined variable name. So now to suppress this, what we want to do is try this code, right, to see if it works. And if it doesn't, then we want to catch this error message. So we're going to try the code, right? And if it doesn't work, we're going to catch the error message. Now, catch takes a few pieces. If it's JavaScript, you can actually just type in error in here, and then that becomes the variable. But with PHP, we have to do exception, $E or whatever you want to call it. I'm going to just call it $error. And then we can var dump our $error. So now this won't be orange anymore. What will happen is we'll try this code out to echo name. It'll get caught, and we'll execute whatever logic is within this block. That's the idea. So if I refresh, yeah, why is it not catching? Maybe it's var dumping the whole thing. Hold on. Did I forget something here? No, this is how try catch works. Well, that's super interesting that it's not catching the error. Let's go check the PHP documentation. Maybe I have titled something incorrectly. So it's called exceptions, right? And if you go through the documentation, they actually show you different examples. It's kind of interesting that it starts on example 3, like they've gotten rid of some of these. So you can see here's our try statement, right? Try, echo, and it's trying these functions, right? And then it catches this exception and will output the exception. Oh, that's where my problem is. The exception is actually not, well, that doesn't matter though. It's an object, and we should be able to var dump the object. Let's change this out to E. Not that it's going to make a difference. Echo, hi, we are in the try statement. Or try block, actually, not statement. We're in the try block. Which, hi, we're in the try block. That is super weird. I kind of wonder if it has to do with this being inside this HTML. You know what? We don't even need the HTML, really. Let's get rid of it. Don't need that. And we'll pull this back a bit. There we go. Let's try that. Nope, that's just bigger. Yeah, that's super interesting that it blows up on name not being defined, even though it shouldn't. I think we need to actually catch any error. Do they have a way to catch other errors? Well, actually, we can see the type of error it should be throwing. It doesn't actually show the error type. It just says notice. All right. Give me 1 second and we'll figure this out. All right, so this is one of those times that, depending on the programming language, it functions differently. If I run try catch in or JavaScript, it catches anything. But it turns out in PHP, standard errors and standard warnings cannot be caught. You can only catch throw-in errors that you throw, or that maybe a class method has thrown, or some function has thrown, but they're thrown errors by the system. You can't catch errors that are just traditional errors, for example, like echo name. But there is a way around that. We can actually write our own error handler, which will stop that. So in the documentation, they have an error handler, set error handler. And the demonstration that they show is basically you write a function, and then you set it. Where the heck is where they're actually setting it? This is not the best. Right here. So they take that error name and they add it in here. But instead of doing that, we can actually write this as a callback instead, which is a little cleaner than writing a function and setting the error. And the way that would look is you basically setting our own error handler for standard errors. So these are internal exceptions, it calls them. So what we'll do is we will set error handler. An error handler takes either a string of the name of the function that you want to call or the function definition itself. And this is kind of interesting. Let's do it both ways. We'll write a function called error handler, and it's going to require the arguments of the error number, the error string, the error file, and the error line. Right? And then we'll just var dump those values. Now the way this works is it's still a callback either way, but the way this works is we give it the name of the error that we want to call, or the function we want to call, and what it will do is it will call this function and it will pass these 4 arguments to the function. Then we can see what those values are. Now I'm getting an interesting error here. It's expecting a curly brace. Pretty sure I did this right. Did I forget to close something? No, both of those are closed. Should work. We don't need to store it, because that wouldn't make a lot of sense. Alright, let's see if that works, because it might not. Yeah, it works. There we go. So it spits out all this data, basically. So we get the line. So the first one is the error number, which is 8. So there's like a list of errors, and they each have a number, a code to it. That's not really explanatory or helpful. But this isn't helpful, right? This is the message that we get. So undefined variable name. And then we have a string that tells us which line number it's on, like where the error actually happened. Or sorry, this is the file that it happened in, and then this is the line number. So we can take this and actually build it out so that it throws a proper error. But before we do that, what I want to show you is how to replace this with just the function definition. So the way we do that is first we'll take out this name, like so. And then we'll take the function itself and we'll cut it out and paste it in place. Now we don't want it to have a name. We don't need it to have a name, because what's going to happen is it's just going to call the function definition and pass in those values. This name here is completely irrelevant. So we'll take the name out, like so, and then save it. So now we have a function that takes a callback. This thing's called a callback, which is really just a function definition, and it will just call this function once it's done and pass these arguments into it. So we'll refresh, and as you can see, nothing changes, and this still looks good and works just fine. So there we go. So we have our callback function. Let's wrap it up a little bit better. So what we'll do instead is, if we get the function, we will throw, and I have a funny feeling we have to do this as a new exception. Like so. And I'm not 100% sure. New exception, and then it's message, right? So we can give it the message of error string. Now the thing is, though, we have a lot more information than just that as the message. We should actually give it a few more pieces of information. So we'll create a string template, and we'll give it the error string, and then we'll do a new line character, file, and we'll put the error file in there, and then another new line character, and then we'll do the line. There we go. So now when we hit the error, it will call it and then spit it out, and we should see it actually get called through this try catch. So this will throw the new exception, right? Which then this try catch should just work just fine. So any error we have normally will call the set error handler function and throw the exception. So we should see that if I hit refresh. Yep, sure enough, there's our error. We've got the exception. There's a whole bunch of information in here. It says which file it happened on, which line it happened on. Like there's a ton of info in here, actually. There is so much info in here, which is pretty cool. And it even actually shows the debug message that gets caught by the error message, which is kind of neat. So we can actually suppress this a little better. Right now we have var E. We can just display the message like so, which is protected message, which means it's probably done with a function call, I want to say. Nope, it's called undefined methods exception method. Which is so funny that it doesn't just catch itself, right? Because that's where the error message happened. So we can do that. Maybe it's get message. I bet you it's get message. Yes, it is. Of course it is. Get message. There we go. That's the function call. There we are. And there's our format. So this is the string format that we created right up here. And you can see undefined variable, name file D, examples index.php, line 30. So now I want to take that information and actually put it into the logging file because I don't want to actually produce tons and tons of error messages out to the user. I'd rather capture this and then give the user a really nice message like there was a problem executing your application, or there was a problem with the application. Please contact your administrator. See, that's a nice, decent message, and that's really the message that a user should see. They shouldn't really see all this PHP stuff, right? Doesn't make sense for them. It's irrelevant to them anyways. It's really only relevant to you. They're not going to know what this file is or what contents there are, why you have an error on line 30, and nor do they care, right? So that's all information that you have to deal with. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to deal with that information. Okay. All right. So let's do our next step. So we're going to error log this, and if you look at the PHP, there's actually a built-in function called error log, which is kind of handy because in JavaScript you actually have to handle it yourself. You have to use like a package or build your own logging system or whatever. Errors do by default actually output to syslog. Any application errors that happen, they immediately go to syslog. Now I'm not sure what Windows uses for syslog. Probably something. There's got to be something for it. But yeah, basically that's what happens. So we have error log, and what error log will do is send a message to the defined error handling routine. Error log's pretty verbose though. It actually will handle not only sending errors, like logging errors to a file, but can actually email them to somebody. So you can actually be like, okay, well, I don't want you to do it this way. I want you to email it off to somebody so that they can resolve whatever the issue is. By default, error log will actually just put it right directly into whatever the default defined error log location is, but you can also state where the directory goes. So it takes a few arguments. Let's see what the arguments are. So it takes a string message and then an integer representing the message type. What's message type? Oh, these are the message types. So one message is sent to the PHP system logger. So that's the logger defined in your PHP INI file, which we'll look at in a second. Message one is messages sent by an email, so it will actually auto send it by email, but you have to have a mail client configured on your computer in order for that to work. 2 is no longer an option, it's deprecated. 3, message is appended to the file destination. A new line is not automatically added to the end of the message string. So this is us define the file, and we automatically output the message directly there, which we'll try that one first. And then message is sent directly to the SAPI logging handler. I'm not sure what SAPI logging handler is, but I can always find out if you're really curious about it. All right, so destination is the third type. So you'll see here that we have a destination and then extra headers. Destination is only if you're defining where the location is, so only for number 3 or 4, I guess. And then extra headers is basically the headers that have to be added for the mail. So that would be like your from, your to, your BCC, your CC, stuff like that. It's just like if you were handing email off. So we're going to do 3 and 1, mostly because I don't think the mail one will work for us. I don't have a mail server set up, so mail likely won't work. All right, let's try 3 and 1. So we're going to come in here and we're going to scrap this because there's no point in that. And we're going to say error log. It's funny, it doesn't give you any information. Huh. Error log. Did I do that correctly? Yeah, I must have. Okay, so the first argument that we need is the error message. So we're going to send getMessage. So that's the first argument. Then the type we want to send, which is 3, because we want to append it to a file destination. And then we're just going to call it error.log, like that. And then you'll just see it show up here, which totally works for me. So if we jump back here and we refresh, you'll see now we have an error log file that just appeared. There was a problem with the application. Please contact your administrator. Look at how much cleaner this is. But now if I go to error log, we can see undefined variable name, file D, WAMP64, COMP-1006, examples index, and the line number. If I refresh again, there's another one, but notice it just appended it right directly to the end. That's what they were talking about when they said it doesn't create a new line character. So to fix that, we can come in here, and we can just do that, which will create a new line character. So if I go back to error log and hit Control R, oh, it didn't work. It didn't actually pick it up. That's kind of interesting. Let's delete this. I don't think that's the issue, but oh yeah, it's working. So it was the issue. So it's going to create a new line character after each one of these. So every time we do this, you're just going to get more and more error logs out to the actual error log. Now that's cool because you can actually see where the error log is going, and you can define the path where the error log is going. Generally, you would define it so that the error logs go above your www directory, so they're not public, because you don't want somebody just outputting the error log, which they could easily do. They just literally type in error.log here, and they can see all the error logs that are coming out. So what you want to make sure you do is you put it above your www directory if you're going to define a specific location. Otherwise, just use the default PHP directory. So let's do that now. We'll define the second one. So this is custom error log location should be above the www directory or the public directory. Right? Whatever's the public directory, you want it to be above that so people can't just see the error logs. Default PHP error.log location. So this will be interesting because it'll be different for everybody. If you're using MAMP, it's in a different location, and I think MAMP actually gives you a direct link to it if you look underneath the dashboard. WAMP will be the same location for everybody unless your WAMP installation is in a different directory. And XAMPP, I think they also give you an error log location button. PHP or WAMP might also. Yep, PHP error log right there. So if we go to PHP and error log, we should, in theory, see the error logs in that area. So let's check. We'll just do error log. This one is definitely the easiest because all it is $E get message. You require no other information, and maybe we do need to do the ./n because I don't think it will do that on its own. So if we go back to this page and refresh, we'll refresh a couple of times. Then we'll click on the W, go to PHP, PHP error log. And there we go. There's our error logs. Now I've got lots of error logs because it's for every single thing we've been working on, right? So it's going to just spit them all out. But we should see ours at the end. No, I've got errors in other people's files. What's the dates on these? This is December 2019. Does it automatically append it to the beginning? Yeah, you see, there's no way this log is even pointing to the right location. So I've got C WAMP 64 logs PHP error log. So I think mine, because I'm in D drive, goes D WAMP 64 logs error log. There they are. All right, let's see if those are the correct logs. Yeah, so these are all January 20th. There's a whole bunch of logs in here. And there we go. There they are. Undefined variable name. Right there. So yours should work. Mine, for some reason, always points to the C directory, even though it's installed in D. Doesn't matter. I could probably fix it. But right now, this should at least show you where your error logs are going. And then you can go take a look there. Now, so this is our way for building out custom logs. You can also build out regular logging. I can't remember if this supports regular logging as well or if it's only error log. There doesn't appear to be any other things. Let's try log. Well, log looks like it uses log, like the natural logarithm. Let's Google it. PHP error log. Maybe you just always error log, whether you like it or not, which feels really stupid. Let's go to Stack Overflow and see if anybody's pointed one out. So they're just creating the log and then they're automatically file putting the contents, which I can show you how to do as well. Which is probably all error log does underneath the hood. It probably does the same thing. Yeah, it doesn't appear there's anything that we need in here. So there's no way to really just create a log without creating your own logging function, which is fine. One thing I do want to note, though, if you look at our error logs in our messages here, you'll notice that this is a little difficult to understand because while we have the undefined variable name as the error message, we have the file type and the line number. That's great information to help figure out what's going on, but we don't have a date, so we don't know when this error actually occurred, which we should do because we definitely want to know when it occurred. We also don't have the different error levels, which we should take care of ourselves, but we'll do that right now. So we're going to build a message, and we'll create our own template for the message. And, oh, actually, we can do this in our error handler. That would make more sense. Let's go build it in our error handler. So we have the line number, the file, and all that type of information. But why don't we do this as error? There we go. So we know it's an error that's occurred. We'll add a /n to the end of this as well, so it creates an extra space. We have the file, the line number, and we should probably put the date in here. So let's get a date. Let's do $date equals date. There's a way to do this in a specific format. Let's go look up the date function. So it's a string format that it takes. And here's the format characters that you need. So what we want is we want the day of the month. Yeah, day of the month with leading zeros. That sounds good. No. We want the month as well. Month with the precedings, zeros. The year. So the full year is kind of interesting. You have to use a capital Y for the year. Then we want the time. So 24-hour time would make the most amount of sense. So let's do capital H, I, and S. There we go. Now in here, we'll add in $date, and then that will prepend the error, or sorry, yeah, prepend the error, and then we know what time these things happened at. So if we go back to our error log, and I'll just clear it out because there's no reason to keep it all in there, and then we'll refresh. Now we've got the date, the time, sorry, we have the, what has happened here? That looks stupid. Let's fix that. These should be separated by colons, not dashes. That doesn't make any sense. Take that out. There we go. So now we have the time, or the date and the time, which tells us what time this error happened. It says 2:02:50, and yet it's 10:03, and that's because of the UTC time. So what's happening is it will take system time over local time. So my local time is 10. You would think this would work out correctly, but it doesn't because my system time is off by 4 hours. So it makes this off by 4 hours. So you have to kind of keep that in mind, that that will also happen when you upload your code to like Heroku or something like that. This time won't be the same as what you're expecting. So you kind of got to keep that in mind when you're looking at the error logs. All right, so we have our error, undefined variable name, right? I don't like this format though. We should have like a space there. So let's do a space. There we go. That looks a little nicer. Yeah, that's a little cleaner. All right, so actually we don't even need this colon. That colon's kind of goofy too. Yeah, I realize this is completely trivial and not necessary. Let's wrap that in square brackets too. There we go. I'm happier with that. Yeah, that's nice and clean. All right, so undefined variable name, the file that it's in, the line number that it occurred on. So we can easily tell we need to go to index.php line 31 to see where the error happened. There's line 31. That's where the error occurred. Yay, we found our problem, so we can fix it now. All right? So this is cool. This is all going to exactly where we want. This throw new exception will force the exception to occur, and yet we're catching any common error handling that we have that might occur. So hopefully that gives you a bit of insight into how we deal with error handling, and give you something that you can add into your own projects as you're building them out for your co-op. Error handling and how to deal with errors and understanding that whole concept of what you just learned right now is super important when you start working in production applications, especially in the industry, because the last thing they want to see is uncaught errors, right? So uncaught errors, which look like this, these are not good. These are bad. These are bad errors. They're fine if it's an internal project that's just for yourself and you don't feel like building out an error handling system because you're just using it as your own personal tool. But the second you're putting this into production for users and you're going to have users looking at it, no, you want to suppress those errors and handle them yourself. Okay? So next, we're going to deal with files and how to work with files and how to make files and read files and write to files and stuff like that. Mostly because it's a common operation that you're going to need to do. And I'm not just talking about file uploading. File uploading is actually super easy and super quick. And I'll show you that first. But I'm also talking about reading and writing to files because it's common that you'll have to deal with file data. For example, a user may upload a comma-separated value list known as a CSV. They may upload it as CSV, and you need to parse the content from that CSV and write it into a database. Or they might give you a list of sites to scrape, or they might give you some JSON data, which is like a particular format of data. Knowing how to deal with that stuff is super important. Will give you a leg up on your competitors as you're getting out into the industry, knowing how to work with that type of data. All right, so we're going to look at that as well, but right now we'll just do the typical upload. And I mean, this could not be simpler. It's super small. You can literally write the whole thing in a very few lines. So first we need a form. So let's create a form. So we'll just do form.php, right? Bang out an HTML page by hitting the exclamation mark and tab. Go, get rid of this stuff. Boom. And we'll call this image uploader. All right, we'll write a header. Give it an H1, image uploader. And then we'll write our form. We'll put in the pieces we need, right? So we'll add an input field, and it will be text. I don't know why I wrote name there. And we'll give it a name of name. And this will be for basically what you want to call the file. So when you upload the file, by default it takes the file's name, but this will allow us to basically say, no, this file is going to be defined as whatever, right? And we just give it whatever name we want it to, and then it will go ahead and put it in there for us. And then we kind of want to also have the input field for uploading the file. And this is simple. You just give it a type of file. You still have to give it a name, though. We'll call it image. And then that will create a little box with a browse button that we can use to upload our file. And then we'll just create a button. I mean, why not, right? Type equals submit, so it actually submits our form. And we'll just say upload. Hit Control R. Whoops, we're on the wrong file. Let's go to form.php. Go, and it's not, oh, because you see it's not inside the examples folder, that's why. Let's put it in the examples folder. Try that again. There we go. Image uploader, choose your file, upload, right? So in here we add the title, so maybe we should add a label here because this is kind of goofy and kind of hard to understand. That's going to be for name. And we can always add this as well. Let's call this image. We'll put a break here just because they're kind of close together and we don't have a framework, a styling framework with us right now. There we go. Nice, very simple. Create a name, choose a file, upload, right? That's all we basically need. We need to point it somewhere, so let's point it to upload.php, right? We'll create a new file under examples called upload.php. And for now, what we'll do is we'll just output the post body. So hopefully you'll notice right off the bat I've already made an error. We're missing a specific thing in order to make this work. Let's try it out just so we can see, right? So our test image. Let's choose a file, right? So I've got some background images in here that we can do. I'll choose this one here, and then we'll click upload. So nothing happened, and the reason why nothing happened is we're not posting, we're getting. Look at all our data. All our data is sitting up in here, right? That's not where we want it. We want to make sure it gets posted to upload. So let's go ahead and change the method to post. Right, and go through the same process again. Let's make sure we refresh. ASDF always works for me. Upload, cool. However, we have another issue. So we have an image, right? It says we have an image name. There's the name of the image. But to be honest with you, the image doesn't exist anywhere yet. Well, actually, that's not true. It exists in a temporary directory. Right now, our image is sitting in a temp directory. The file is there and waiting to be moved into a public directory. Now, the interesting thing is once this script is done, that file gets deleted and it disappears after a bit of time. I don't think it happens right away. I think it takes a little bit, actually. It disappears and will go away and you'll lose the file altogether. So we want to take this image and from its temp directory and move it to a better location. Now we're still missing some other pieces, and I'll show you this. One, images don't actually contain their data in the post. They contain their data in another superglobal known as files. And the S on files is not a mistake, it's intentional. You can actually upload multiple files to the server. You're not limited to just uploading one. So yeah, now if I refresh, you'll notice it's empty, but we definitely uploaded a file. The reason why it's empty is because this form is made for data only. It's made to transmit data back to the server, and that's it. Any binary operations, like uploading a file, requires us to change the form's type. So right now, by default, it's a form text type. We want to change the encoding type by adding the attribute enctype. We want to change it over to a multi-part, meaning there's multiple parts, right? So there's a data element and a binary element. Form data, okay? You require this in order for form uploading to work. If you're missing this, your form uploading will not work. So we have to go back, refresh our page so that takes effect. ASDF, choose the file, and upload. And now you'll notice, one, we've lost that extra field that was in the post body before. All the image data is now sitting inside that super global $_files, right? So here's the name of the file. This is the original name of the file. This is its file type, right? So it's an image PNG. This is its MIME type as guessed by the server when the file comes over. One thing to understand, though, that this MIME type is completely changeable by the user. The user can modify this MIME type. So you might assume it's an image based on this type, but you should never take this as being fact, right? Like, always question this because it's not necessarily a fact. The temporary name of the file, right? So this is where our file is actually located right now. It's sitting in a temp directory. This is its funny name. We can actually go see that. If we go to our WAMP64 installation folder, there's a temp directory in there. If you click on it, these are all the temporary files that have been created up to this point, right? Ours is called PHP E8E4. So we want to find the PHP E8E4. Why am I not seeing it in here? Maybe it's hidden. Though I'm pretty sure I have hidden files turned on. New, open, select. Where the heck is the view folder? Oh, there it is. View. Well, I've got hidden files turned on. Well, I definitely don't see the PHP file in here that it says it's in here. Yeah, there's no PHP file in there. So I'm not sure. It might be hidden from me. Not sure how. All right, whatever. That doesn't matter. So we've got no error. That's what the 0 means. There's no error. There are other errors. Sometimes it's file size. Sometimes it's... there's a whole bunch of different reasons why you might get an error. File size, MIME types, stuff like that. And then this is the size of our file in bytes, right? So 1024 bytes to a kilobyte, 1024 kilobytes to a megabyte, right? So keep that in mind. Now, PHP has a size limit on the size of the file that can be uploaded, and it varies depending on your installation, but generally it's set to 2 megabytes. So the maximum file size that can be uploaded is 2 megabytes. We are going to look at changing that so that you can actually upload much larger files if you so choose. All right, so we've got this information. Now, to move the file from its current location into our uploads directory is actually quite simple. It's just using move uploaded file. First name is the file name that you want to move. So this is the, and it says file name, but that's not true. It's actually the location of the file that you want to move. So what we have to do is we have to give it the, so we're going to go to Files, then we're going to go into the image, and then its current location is where the temp name is. So this is the source, right? And then we want to go to the destination of where we want it to be, and that's just going to be uploads. Actually, let's do this as interpolated string. Uploads, and then we'll add these brackets, and it's going to $files. Image, and we're going to use the name that we passed. Oh wait, yeah, so this is totally not it. So we want to do post, sorry, name That's what we're going to call it. Now keep in mind though that the name doesn't have the extension on it, so we need the extension. So right now we know the extension, so we'll just add PNG. That works for me. So now when I refresh, it's actually going to upload it, and you'll see it show up in the uploads directory. So I'm going to refresh, hit continue, and there you go. There's the ASDF, and you can see the picture if you click on it inside the uploads directory. Now there's some concerns here. One of the concerns is we're hard coding the extension. So if we were to upload a JPEG file or an SVG, it's going to winding up with the .png name, which doesn't make sense. We don't want it to have the .png name. We want to have the actual extension name that we need. So to get that, what we can do is we can create a variable. We'll just call it extension, and we'll get PHP to figure out the extension. So what we can do is just do $files image, and this time we're not giving it temp name, because if we gave it the temp name, if we gave it the temp name, we'll get the temp extension. We want the PNG extension, which we can take from the name field. So we'll take it from the name. Like so. And now we can change PNG to be $extension. All right? And that will still work. If I refresh, hit continue. Nope, I got a weird error. Oh, right, of course I did, because path info actually takes a second argument, and that's what we want to get back from it. So we want the path info extension from it. Now if I refresh, this will work. And you'll notice nothing's really changed except for I did get a file called asdf.array, which is pretty weird. But yeah, so we can get rid of that because we don't need that. But the asdf.png worked. And if I hit refresh again, you'll notice that we're just getting that one file back. So that's the other thing to note as well. It overwrites the file if the file already exists, which may be what you want. Chances are it is. You don't want to have to figure out renaming. If you're going to rename the file, you can, but what I would do is just take this name, the one that's auto-generated, because it's guaranteed to be unique, right? So you could use that to rename the file, and you'd be fine. You'd always wind up with a unique file. All right, so there's some other issues here, though. Like one, for example, we have a 2 megabyte file restriction. If we go over the 2 megs, it won't upload properly, and we should let the user know that there's a 2 megabyte file restriction. If I go back here and I choose a file that's a little bit larger, so I have background files, and some of these are huge, right? So this is like 4K, this is 2K, this is 1K. If I choose, this one's 5.61 megabytes, which will blow way past the actual PHP limit. This one is 1.9 megabytes, which will be allowed. This one's 2.5. So let's just choose the 5 one. I'm going to choose open, and I'm going to click upload. And what you're going to notice is some things have happened that are going to cause an error, but you're not really going to see the error. So first of all, I've got no MIME type. The MIME type has completely disappeared, and that's because we have this weird error that has happened. And what the error means is that the file size, number one, the file size is too large for what PHP will support. PHP by default will not support a file size over an X limit, right? So we can actually force it to and say, hey, no, you have to do this. But for right now, we're going to leave it at 2 megs. I will show you how to increase the limit. But before we do that, what we'll do is we'll leave it at 2 megs, but we'll check and say, okay, well, how big is it? The other thing we need to know is that this information is not necessarily accurate. This stuff can be fudged. So we're going to use PHP methods in order to tell what's happening. And all this basically needs to happen beforehand. So you can think of it like validating a file. That's basically what we're doing. So validating our file. So our first check is going to be on the size. If the size is too small, then we're not going to use it. So let's create a variable called max, and it will be 1024 times 1024 times 2. So that'll be 2 megs. Okay, and we want to see if the file size is greater than 2 megs. So if file size, pretty easy function, eh? Files image and it needs to point to the location of the file. So temp name is greater than $max, then we will echo file is too big, limit is 2 megabytes. And then we can exit, right? Or if there's no file and the file is too small, then we also want to let them know that. So let's see if this will work. I have a funny feeling this won't work because the file won't have actually even gone into the directory yet. So if I hit Control R, we get nothing, and it has to do with the fact that this file hasn't even been uploaded yet. It hasn't even gone into the directory yet. So we can actually check for that as well. This is validating max size. We can validate we even have a file by just simply going if $_files, and we'll just say empty here. And what we're looking for here in this time is whether or not there's a temp name at all, right? Because if there's no temp name, we have no file. Echo, your file couldn't be uploaded. Exit. And if the error code is 1, try to switch statement in here actually. Switch $_files image error, and then we'll write case 1, meaning that it was an error code of 1. We'll echo your file size was too big. Limit is 2 megabytes. And exit. There we go. Nice, easy error handling. If we refresh, we'll see this error. Your file couldn't be uploaded. Your file size was too big. Limit is 2 megabytes. All right, so let's try this. So the default is 2 megs. Let's try reducing our file size to 1 meg, right? And then I'll upload the 1 megabyte file, which means it'll work because it will be allowed by PHP because it's under its 2 megabit restriction, but it's not under our 1 megabit restriction that we've defined. So if I upload, now we just get the file is too big, limit is 2 megs, and we're getting this error message, right? So that's kind of handy, and we can see all its data, and we know it's big, right? Everything's good. Let's add one more check. Let's add a check that basically says if the image is not a PNG, we won't accept it, right? So validate, actually we'll get it past the error messages here. No, right here is fine. Validate, no, let's do it past the file sizes. Makes more sense. Logically, this is the better order. Validate image type. Validating the image type is kind of a tricky thing. If we choose a file that is not those files, let's go with the Joker SVG, and we'll upload it. You'll see that this has an SVG file type, and everything is fine. The system doesn't care. It uploaded into a temporary directory. We want to basically check to see its MIME type. However, this can be faked, and the person could say this is a PNG file, but really it's actually a PHP file, right? So we need to be careful on how things get translated. So we're going to force the file MIME type, and we're going to use a function called MIME content type to find out what the type is. So we're going to say file content type equals MIME content type $_files image, and again we're pointing at where the file actually is because that's where it's going to read the MIME type from, right? And then we'll var dump the $file content type so you can see what kind of file type it is. So if I Control R, see, it tells you it's an image SVG. And then what we can do is we can use if preg match. So if the file matches this pattern, right? So then we're going to put the pattern, we're going to use I, so it's case insensitive. We're going to say if it matches image That's okay, right? Slash PNG, we have to escape the slash, hence why we're doing this operation. So if it equals image PNG, and we want the opposite of that, if it does not equal image PNG, then echo only PNG files are permitted. Please upload a valid file type. And then we'll exit. So now if I refresh, oh, specs 2 parameters, that's correct. We have the pattern, and then we also need the thing that we want to review. Oops. No, I guess it's just file content. We already did that. There we go. Refresh. Yeah, only PNG files are permitted. Please upload a valid file type. So if I come back, choose just our Joker that works, and hit upload, everything went through fine, and I'm ready to say echo your file was uploaded successfully. There we go. So we have a working file system. It doesn't take much. Like I said, you can just run this one line and completely upload the file, but it is a good idea to validate. Now, often 2 megabytes is not going to work. It's going to be way too small, or you're going to be working in WordPress where the default is 2 megs, and you're going to need to increase the file limit. People want to upload PDFs, people want to upload ebooks and stuff like that, and unfortunately you're going to be exceeding past the file limit. I'm going to make it so that we can upload this 4K file here. I'm going to click upload. It's going to blow up, right? Your file can be uploaded. Notice that there's no temp name or anything. Your file size was too big. Limit is 2 megabytes. Let's fix that. The easiest way to fix that is first find out where our PHP INI file is, because that is the thing, that's our configuration file. It's what tells the server, the Apache server, how to function, how to work with our data. So in order to adjust that, we need to find out where it is. So we're going to create a new file under examples called info.php. And we're going to put one line in here, php info, and that's a function call. Okay. Then we're going to navigate to info.php. This gives us a whole ton of information about our PHP installation. It tells us what version we're using, tells us the system that we're using it on. It gives us a build date. It gives us the compiler that's being used, our architecture, our configuration commands, a whole bunch of information that we need in order to have a working PHP environment. But one thing it gives us that's really super handy and important is where our config file is located, which is this right here. Load a configuration file. Mine is in D, WAMP64 bin Apache 2.4.1 bin PHP INI. I'm going to copy that. Then I'm going to go to my folder, and I'm going to click up here, and I'm going to paste it. And then I'm going to hit enter. It's going to open it up in here for me, which is not super handy because it's kind of hard. There's no syntax highlighting or anything like that. If I want the syntax highlighting, what I can do is paste it and just back out so it's just going to the bin. Find the file inside here, which is called PHP INI, and then drag it into here for myself. So here we go. Here's our PHP file. There's a few settings that we need to change in order to allow a larger file size. And you can actually find these settings in here. If you hit Control F and type in max and keep hitting it, you can see here you have a max file uploads limit of 20. Max input time of 60 seconds, right? These are things that are going to cause issues. We have a memory limit of 128 megs. Let's check our upload limit. Upload max file size is 2 megabytes. So we can find these options, that's what these are, inside our INI file. So I'm going to say Control F, upload max file size, and there it is. And we're going to just change this to be 32 megabytes, so it allows up to 32 megabytes. There's one other issue though. there is a post size, which is how much binary data can be allowed to transport through post. And that's when we post our form. So if I go to post, which is, I can never remember the name of it. Post max size. So we're allowed up to 8 megabytes. Well, 8 megabytes is definitely lower than our 32 megabytes. So we need to increase that to 32 megabytes. The other issue we're going to have is with our timing. Let's go back to where the time is. Right here. So execution time. We might need longer than 120 seconds for execution time, especially if we're dealing with a larger file. So if we go to max underscore, let's go to max underscore execution. Okay, there we go. 120 seconds. We can pump that up to 240, which gives us over 4 minutes of execution time. Max input time, I can't remember what that is, but a lot of people will bump that up to the same number. I think it tells you actually. Oh, it's the amount of time it can spend parsing the request data. So that does make sense. We'll give it 4 more minutes. How many get post cookie input variables may be accepted? That is a mouthful. Max input vars 2500. So we're not going to have 2500. We only have 2. So that's the number of inputs that you're sending back. And then the maximum amount of memory a script may consume. So keep in mind that this, you have to be careful because this is based on your memory of your RAM on your system, right? So this is not hard drive memory. This is RAM. So if you have less than 128 megs, which you wouldn't, then obviously you can't do that. But we can definitely boost this up. So we'll give it 256 megs. Keep in mind as well, this is very important to understand. If this exceeds the total available memory, then your script is going to fail. Available memory is a little different than what you're allowing the memory limit to be. There's other applications using your RAM on your system, like your operating system, any background processes that you might have, any other things like your SQL Server, stuff like that. They're all consuming your RAM, and you may not have 256 megs to just give away. So you kind of have to be careful of that, or you'll wind up blowing past the script limit. So just keep that in mind. So with those changes that I've made, and some of them aren't even necessary, but with those changes that I've made, I can go back to my form.php. Actually, I can refresh this. So you'll notice that the changes haven't changed, and that's because we need to restart this. So we'll just go back here, restart all services. It's going to take a second to go through. Or it's going to hang. Let's try it again. There, it's off, on, and green. I wonder what the error is. Might have a logging error where this is just not able to reach. Oh, there it goes. Just took a second. So if I refresh, we should see these values change. And there they go. 240, 20, 64, 240. Right? And the big ones that we really care about is the post max size, which is 32 megs, and the upload max file size, which is 32 megs. So we should be able to support 32 megs without an issue. Let's go to form.php, ASDF, choose, 4K should be totally supported, upload, everything works, but now our thing is kicked in and said, no, you can't upload more than 2 megabytes, but notice we have a file size limit. So at least we can support up to 2 megs, which means now we should be able to go change that. So let's go back to our upload, and we'll say, no, you can support up to 32 megabytes. There we go, 32 megabytes of size. Hit refresh, continue. Your file was uploaded successfully. You'll see the ASDF in here, and everything has worked fine. Right? Noticing that there's an ASDF SVG in here, let's make sure that our stuff is working, because that should not have been in there. Let's go back, refresh. We'll choose an image, pictures, ASDF, upload. Yep, and it didn't work. So everything's working. Our whole script is working. We've updated the size limits. We have a nice working file handler. So this will allow us to upload files, right? Only images, obviously. But now we can upload files to our system. So that's pretty awesome. Let's duplicate this page. We'll copy and we'll paste. Right-click, rename, and we'll call this data handler. Actually, file data handler. There we go. Now, a lot of this stuff we don't need. We have all of this. We're not going to be working with an uploaded... Well, we might work with an uploaded file. Will we work with an uploaded file? Yes, actually, we'll make this kind of smart and interesting. What we'll do is, if the file is uploaded and we have an uploaded file, we'll use it. But if it's not uploaded, then we'll use a default file. So let's create a default file. New file, default.json. And we'll write our code in JSON, just to make our life a little simpler. There we go. Okay, so all of this should still be permitted. 32 megs might be a little much. Let's go to 5 meg limit. 5 megabit, yep. Content type, we're not going to call it image, right? So let's go and change the word image out. So we'll just duplicate. This will be text, I guess. Text JSON, I think it is. And this will only allow JSON. But I think that might be the incorrect MIME type. We'll have to look at the MIME type to see. So we'll just var dump the MIME type. There we go. Let's try. So we'll come in here. We'll choose a file. We'll create a new file. And you guys can do this as well. Just create a new text file called data.json. There we go. So that's a data.json file. And this is our file data handler.form. So we need another form. I think we can use the same form. We'll just call it file uploader. That works for me if it works for you. However, it's image name, so let's change this to file. Like so. So it's no longer just an image thing. And we need to change the word image out. Oh, no, not an upload.php. What am I doing? Yes, no, we do. All right. We're going to send it there. Yes, I know my brain works kind of weird. So here, we're sending it to here now. Obviously, this PNG type does not work. It's because we have file PNG, and that's not going to work for an upload. We're going to need to change this file, which we can do by changing this accessory type. Actually, that's fine. We want that to be file. It's the MIME type that we want to change, just here. So we can actually make this recognize two possible file types. So it's either image or text/JSON. There we go. Oh, this is silly. We're going to have so many issues if we do it this way. Yeah, let's fix this. This is silly. Why am I making this so much harder than it needs to be? Let's put everything back the way it was. There. We'll leave that all the way it was. We'll create a new folder called image upload. And then we'll take that, and that, and we'll put it into here. There we go. All right. And then we'll close all this stuff off. Okay. Now I'm going to create a new folder called data upload. Make sure that's in the examples. New file called form.php, and new file called upload.php. There we go. If uploaded file, if default file. So both shouldn't matter. We'll just get our data. Once we have our data, then we'll parse it, right? And do whatever we're going to do with the data. All right, so we want new folder in here called uploads, and that's where we'll put our data upload. All right, form, super easy. Let's get rid of this extra garbage. Data uploader, right? Header. Could have just copied all this. Data uploader. Form. Remember, the action needs to point to upload.php. The method is going to be post, and the enc type is going to be multi-part form data. Then we're going to have our divs, right? We don't need like a data name. We'll just leave the file name as whatever the auto-generated one is. Instead, we'll just create an input, which will be a file input with the name of, let's just call it data. I mean, why not, right? And then we'll just create a button with the break tag. Super lazy form, for sure. Type equals submit. There we go. So this is going to go into our data upload folder, form.php, choose a file, upload the file. That's basically all we're going to do. All right, that file that we have, that we kind of created, we're going to create a default JSON file here. Default JSON file, just copy what I'm writing. Basically, it's just a series of keys and values. That's all JSON is. So we'll just add in full name. First is Sean. Last is McKinnon. Age, and it does take integers and strings, just like a champ, not a big deal. 41. Date of birth, which will be a string, which will be 22nd, 12, 1978. And married. It also takes booleans, is true. Good enough. Perfect data for me. All right, so we have that data. That's the default data. Actually, that doesn't make sense as the default data. Let's copy that. We'll go to where we're storing our data, under Documents. It wasn't under Documents. What was it under? Pictures. I'm going to open this guy up here and paste it in there. So that's our data.json. Our default will be just default values, right? So Jane Smith 33 01-01- wow, brain's not working, 1998 and false. There, so that's the default person. So we've got two different users here, nice and easy, right? If we choose a file and we choose our data.json file and upload, we're in our upload.php thing. So let's go ahead and add in some var dumps so we can see what's going on. So var dump $_files, and we'll see what this file looks like. Cool, so it's a data.json. It says its type is application JSON, but why don't we get its MIME type? So first, we want to check to see if we actually have a uploaded file. So if $files data, because that's the name of the field, temp name, and we want to wrap this whole thing in a function, is not empty. So we're only going to deal with this if it's not empty, right? Let's create a variable outside of here called $data equals null for now. So we'll just predefine it. Whoops, it's 2 L's. There we go. If it's not null, then we're going to deal with the data, right? So we'll load the data first. So this is interesting. We want to move it first. So let's move the data to our uploads folder. So we'll move. Actually, let's check the MIME type. So file content type equals MIME content type $files data temp name. There we go. Let's var dump what that is, because it might be different than the one that's provided by the file handler. It is text plain, actually, which is super interesting. That's cool. It's text plain. I guess it kind of is technically plain text, and we'll have a catch here in a second to deal with it anyway. So let's deal with that. So if I'm really concerned that at some point that would come back as a different MIME type, but it might not. All right. So if $file content type, we'll use preg match actually. So if preg match so if it doesn't match plain, oops, can't forget to put in the thing, $file content type. And then we'll echo your data must be in a JSON format. JSON format. Exit. So that should still work. Everything should be fine because it is text plain. Yep, we got no errors. So our next step is to basically say, if that works, then we want to read the data into the data field. And we're going to use a JSON parsing thing that's built in place. But we need to open this file first. So we're going to move it. And obviously that takes in the file's current location. And we're just going to move it to no, let's do this. /uploads. Yeah, uploads / we might as well use the file name that's built in. So files name, oops, data name. There we go. So it should move the file into this directory if everything is okay. Which, I mean, it should be, because there's no... We could do the size check as well, but I don't really care. We'll just leave that for now. You know how to do size check. Yep, there's our data JSON. So if we have that file, we can actually check $, res equals, this is just going to return a Boolean. If $res, actually, I don't think it does return a Boolean. I think it returns nothing. So let's check. Oh no, it does. Cool. So if res, so if we actually have the file in the right location, then we can go ahead and process the data. So if not res, we can say echo, there was an issue with the file you uploaded. Please try again. And exit. Otherwise, we can process this. So the first thing we need to do is read the file, and then using the file contents, we're going to convert them into JSON and like actual proper, sorry, not JSON, into a proper data object and store that into data for us to process. So we're going to have that as well. Process data. Too many S's in process. All right, so let's deal with that. So we're going to take a look at PHP manual. We want to file, not file exists, file get contents is what we want. Yeah, so we just give it a file name location, and then it will return back the file contents. So let's do that. So we're going to say file contents equals file get contents $, underscore, nope, actually we can just point to it, can't we? We can use this. Whoops. There we go. That works. So that allows us to get the file. You know what? We should think about this in a more smart sense instead of being redundant. Because the file get content part we're going to do quite often. So instead, why don't we create a file name variable? There we go. And then just set this to be or file location actually would make more sense. I don't know why I said name. That doesn't make any sense. File location equals, and then we'll do this location. Cool. And actually, we can set a default in here, right? Which is data.json. Where is our actual? That's data.json. Where's the default JSON? Actually, let's put that into data upload so that it's sitting here at the root level, and then we're accessing it from the root level. Where am I doing that? Right here, right? So either way, we're going to have a file no matter what. Now all our code gets processed out here because it's basically the same. Cool. So our first step is to get the content. So we're going to say content is equal to file get contents, and all we have to do is give it the file location. To make sure that worked, we'll just var dump the content. Jump back to our thing and hit refresh. And sure enough, we got content. But this is just a big string, right? As it says. We want to convert this into JSON. So we're going to say $data is equal to, and actually I don't even know why we're defining this up here. There's no reason to. Is equal to, is it parse JSON or is it JSON parse? Can't remember. Let's go check. JSON encode and decode. That was totally off. It's JSON decode. All right, so let's do that. JSON decode $content. Now this starts at an automatic depth of 512 levels. And what it means by 512 levels, it's the number of nestings. So you see how we have a nesting in here? It's the number of nestings deep it's actually going to go. And then there's some options that we have available to it as well. So we can bitmask it of JSON big int. So the behavior of these constants is described on the JSON's constants page. We can get it as an array, throw on error. I bet you there's some other ones too, like an object. Be cool if you can get it as an object, but I bet you we can't. Let's check and see what our data looks like then. We'll hit refresh. Oh, it comes as an object. Cool. So it's already an object, which means in order to access these things, we just simply use the points. See? And there's first and last name. So we treat it as an object, which is kind of cool. Now we're ready to deal with the data. So we're going to just build out like an echo statement. Actually, you know what? We'll close this off. Write some HTML. There we go. And we'll just put in different things, I guess. Maybe a table makes the most amount of sense for this. Oh, don't want TD. I want a TH. Whoop. There we go. Let's do full name. What is the other data that we have? No, I totally forgot. There we go. Okay, so we have full name, obviously their age, their date of birth, and marital status. Go, and now the T-body. And this is all hard-coded, right? Because that's the way we're doing it here. So we'll do an equals, and we'll just spit out the code right directly in here. So it's data, full name, first, data, full name, last. Whoops, why am I doing that? I did that wrong. Yeah, that's better. Now there's cells. Okay, TD equals data age. TD data DOB and TD data married. Now this one might have to be converted to a string because I think it would actually just, I think it's just going to say 0. So I think we can actually fix that by doing a ternary. There we go. Now we have a ternary for it. So if we refresh, there we go. Full name, age, date of birth, marital status, yes, age is 41. Works out perfect. Be even better if it was an array of data. Now, if we don't have a file that's uploaded and we go to this page just directly, we're going to have some issues. So why did I have issue getting the string? No such file or directory from upload.php. Let's just make sure we're in the right directory here. Yeah. Default.json. Oh, because it's called default.json. Not data. Why did I call it data? Default.json. There we go. And it works. So if you upload a file and it posts to this, then it will change this code. Otherwise, you get the default data that's under the default JSON. Now, you could do this as an array as well if you wanted to. But the idea is, you may be asking, like, when would you use this? So, for example, in our G-Shift system, we have people who want to create basically analytics for multiple pages, right, that they own. And they might own hundreds and hundreds of pages. And instead of them having to take that data, go into the G-Shift system and upload it, or sorry, add it in bit by bit, one piece at a time, we have an upload tool that allows them to upload a CSV, and then we parse the CSV and process it and insert all that into the database for them, which makes their lives a lot simpler. So this kind of file handling is very common because you're going to want to be able to do this for, as a tool, just to be able to add massive amounts of data into a database or whatever reason. There might be 100 different reasons why you would use external files. It's going to happen often. You're going to wind up using external files often. Now, you can also put contents in a file as well, just to be aware. So why don't we add like a little log here
just to state that we basically added a file in here in the data upload. We'll create a log file. So the way we do that is we just go, so once all this is done, we've got our decoded content. We only want to do it if this has happened, if we've uploaded a file. So we'll do file put contents. First is the location of where we're going to have the file. So the file will exist right at the root, and it's just going to be called log.php. Or sorry, log.log. That's what we'll call it. And then it's going to want the data that it wants to add to it. So it's mixed data. Pretty sure I can just do this with quotes for the content that I want to add. So this is going to be, we want the date. So $date equals date. And that's going to be d-m-y. And then the timestamp was I:s. So we'll add that first. So we'll do $date. Data upload. Might as well put out the name, I guess. That would make this most sense. Or the location. Actually, location would be very handy. So why don't we move this down here, and then we'll add the location. There, that's a nice simple statement, right? So now if we hit refresh, nothing changes, we get nothing here, right? We can get rid of this var dump up here. So it's a nice clean looking file. There we go. So we get nothing, there's no log file created, but if we go back to our form, refresh, we'll choose a file, grab our data, hit open, and upload. Now we have a log.log file, and there's our log statement pointing out where this log was actually created and at what time. So cool. So hopefully that gives you some information on working with try, catch, and error handling and files. It's kind of just not a filler class. I will put file handling on the test, and I will put error handling on the test. The test is going to be a little different than it was last time. It's going to be challenges. There'll probably be 4 challenges altogether. Everybody's challenges will be slightly different. So again, no copying and pasting, but you are welcome to communicate across Discord to get help from each other and stuff like that. You'll have 5 hours, because I'll give you from 5 till 10 in order to complete it. You might complete it within, like, the test should be relatively easy and completable within about an hour tops, I would think. And it will be open at 5 p.m. your class time. So that's Eastern Standard Time, just in case people have gone home to their other countries and stuff like that as well. So just keep that in mind. That's Eastern Standard Time, 5 p.m. And yeah, and if you have any concerns whatsoever, you need to contact me. I'm going to put out an announcement about it tomorrow, just to remind everybody how it's going to work, how it's going to go. Make sure if you've fallen behind at all with any of the quizzes, that you do those. Any labs, get them done. They're all open right now, so just get them done, get them in there. Projects are done and marked, so that's over, and midterms are done and marked. So yeah, it's just the final grade. If you want to know what your current grade is like, take a look at the weighted total. The weighted total is your current grade. So if you're failing, which I don't think anybody is, but if you are, definitely make sure you do some studying, because that last 15%, I think the final is going to be, the last 15%, you're going to need it, right? So yeah, so hopefully everybody is doing okay, and definitely miss all you guys. But yeah, cheers. Take it easy.